Greetings to all students. Today we are going to discuss an important topic, and that is Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, structure, functions and role. We can discuss this topic under following headings. Introduction, Telecom Regulatory Authority of India TRAI history, TRAI structure, government control over TRAI, functions and powers, role, controversies and finally conclusion. The growth of telecom sector has been the decisive factor in success story of India. It has produced the solid base for gaining the advantages of globalization and proliferation of information technology in India. Keeping in view the complexity of telecom sector, the central government established the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, that is TRAI. The TRAI was established in the year 1997 by an Act of Parliament with Telecom Regulatory Authority of India Act 1997. It protects the interest of service providers and consumers of telecom services. The TRAI regulates telecom services with the aim of providing a fair and transparent policy environment which can promote high standards in telecom sector and facilitate fair competition in this field. Students, our country India is transforming itself from a developing nation into a developed nation, and telecom sector in India has played a significant role in this. But when we concern and discuss the telecom sector, we know that this sector is not only full of competition, but also there are concerns regarding protecting the interest of consumers, maintaining a fair competition among service providers and match the standards which have been set in the field of legal, economic, ethical and economic fields. So, to handle the complexity of all these matters, the central government established Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, that is TRAI. Looking at the multifarious responsibilities of this institution, it becomes necessary to discuss the role and structure of this institution. Telecom Regulatory Authority of India history. Telecom sector in India may be considered to be 170 years old. In 1851, the first telegraph line was started in Bengal between Kolkata and Diamond Harbour for the use of the East India Company. In 1854, the telegraph facilities were opened to the public. In 1881, the first formal telephone services was established in the country. This development journey of telecom sector in India witnessed other milestones such as establishment of first wireless telegraph station, that is 1901, first automatic exchange installation 1913-14, radio telephone system between UK and India 1933. Students, as we look back on the journey of this TRAI and other institutions, we find that the efforts in this field were started in British India also. The first telegraph line was established in British rule, and that was only for the use of East India Company. And as we see gradually further, we find that other milestones were also set in the form of automatic exchange installation or radio telephone service between UK and India, etc. In 1947, the first electronics and telecommunications engineering department was started in Jabalpur, where the first TV transmitter of India was installed in 1951. Until 1984, Indian telecom sector was wholly governed by the government of India, after which, with the impact of liberalization, privatization and globalization, the telecom sector was opened for private sector. In 1985, the Department of Telecom, that is DOT, was separated from Indian Posts and Telecommunications Department, In 1992, the private investment in sector of value added services was allowed and cellular telecom sector was opened up for competition from private investment. Student, as we see in 1947, another important step was taken in this field and the first TV transmitter was established in 1951. But you might be aware that in the last decade of 20th century, there was a induction of LPG, that is liberalization, privatization and globalization, and this concept affected the telecom sector also. What was the effect? Yes, the private sector was allowed for investment in this field and this completely changed the whole scenario, and this created the situation where the institutions like TRAI was emerged. In 1994, the National Telecommunication Policy was introduced with the same views. In 1997, to reduce the interference of government in deciding the tariffs and policy making, the government set up Telecom Regulatory Authority of India (TRAI) through a parliamentary act, that is TRAI Act 1997. In year 2000, the Telecom Disputes Settlement and Appellate Tribunal (TDSAT) was set up through an amendment of the TRAI Act 1997. The aim of establishment of TDSAT was to release TRAI from adjudicatory and dispute settlement functions in order to strengthen the regulatory framework. Hence, the TRAI is focused on creating and nurturing conditions for growth of telecommunications in the country by regulating telecom sector. Students, as we see gradually, it was felt necessary that there should be institutions which can reduce the interference of the government in telecom sector, because this sector was full of lots of complexities. So, the TRAI was established and gradually in 2000 it was felt that when there is fair competition in this field and there are lots of service providers, there it is necessary to have an institution which can settle the disputes which arise in this field. So, TDSAT was set up and now the TRAI concentrates on regulating the services which are provided in the field of telecommunications, and it helps to nurture and create the situation where the telecom sector can grow in full speed. Telecom Regulatory Authority of India structure. In pursuance to section 3(2) of Telecom Regulatory Authority of India Act 1997, TRAI consists of a chairperson, not more than 2 whole-time members and not more than 2 part-time members. All these members are appointed by the central government. The term of office is either 3 years or till they attain the age of 65 years, whichever is earlier. The central government can also appoint a vice chairperson if required. The headquarters of TRAI is in New Delhi. According to Act, the chairperson and other members who qualify to occupy this post shall have special knowledge and professional experience in telecommunications, industry, finance, law, accounting and management of consumer affairs. A government servant cannot hold such a position unless the person has served the government as a secretary or additional secretary for a period of more than 3 years. Students, if we have a look at the structure of this institution, we find that there is 1 chairperson and 4 other members, out of which 2 are permanent members and 2 are part-time members. And while appointing the members of TRAI, government gives special attention to the fact that such members should have specialized knowledge in the field of industry, telecommunication services, consumer behavior and affairs and all related fields. The chairperson or any other member of TRAI cannot possess any financial or other interest which might impact his decisions or functions. The chairperson and other members can be removed from office or can resign from office upon a written notice to be given to the central government 3 months prior to such resignation. Such a person becomes ineligible to be employed by the central or state government, he also cannot be commercially employed for a period of 1 year. Students, one more condition applies here, that such person or any member of the TRAI should not be having any economic or financial interest which might affect his decisions, because it is a field where all the financial activities and transactions take place. So, to keep this field free from any type of correction, these conditions are applied. The Secretariat. The Secretariat of Telecom Regulatory Authority of India is headed by one secretary. The secretary looks after manpower planning, deployment, promotions, transfers and postings according to rules laid down in the Act. He takes a step for human resource development and training. He coordinates preparation, issues of agenda papers for authority meetings in consultation with the chairman. He also organizes minutes of authority meetings and issue of directions and guidelines in accordance with the decision of authority. Student, there is one secretariat which assists the chairperson in his functions and is headed by a secretary. The secretary looks after all the matters relating to training, transfers, deployment, manpower planning and management of meetings, etc. Presently, the authority consists of 9 divisions: mobile network division, fixed network division, converged network division, quality of service division, broadcast and cable service division, economic division, financial analysis and internal finance and accounts division, legal division and administration and personnel division. Student, we see that the authority is divided into 9 divisions and all different divisions deal different matters. Government control over TRAI. Although the main aim of establishment of TRAI was to reduce the interference of the government in telecom sector, still the government holds certain control in limited areas of TRAI's functioning. The chairperson and other members of the authority are appointed by the central government. The central government also has the power to remove any member in certain conditions. The Telecom Dispute Settlement and Appellate Tribunal (TDSAT) is also established by the central government. The TRAI is funded by the central government. According to Act, the accounts and audit reports of the authority along with report of all the activities carried out in the previous year is forwarded to the central government. The central government can make rules and issue directions for the smooth functioning of the authority. Students, the field of telecommunication is so sensitive that government cannot leave this field alone, and that is why though the TRAI was established to reduce the interference of the government in the functions of the telecom sector, but governments hold some of the important functions in its hands, and that are the funds of these institutions, appointment and removal of the members of the TRAI, and power to give directions to this institution if it is required. Telecom Regulatory Authority of India functions. The functions of TRAI are aimed at regulating the telecommunication services and functioning of operators to ensure fair competition and consumer protection. These functions are: A. Recommendatory functions. The TRAI has to make recommendations on the following matters: need for the introduction of a new service and its timing. For this, TRAI has to analyze the existing situation of the service in a particular region. Students, the main aim of TRAI is to regulate the telecom services, because on the one hand there are consumers and service provider, and on the other hand there is government which has to take the responsibility of fair competition in this field. So, TRAI has to manage all these functions, and to carry out these functions, TRAI look after the following matters and gives recommendations to the government. For example, first of all, whether it is felt that a need for induction of a new operator in a particular region is there or not, TRAI analyzes the situation and then give recommendations to the government. Terms and conditions of issuance of license to a service provider. TRAI describes the conditions according to which the license should be granted to a service provider. These institutions also set the rules and regulations and terms on the basis of which a license should be given to a service provider. Revocation of license due to non-compliance of terms and conditions set by the TRAI. The action of revocation of license is taken as last step. Students, if any service operator does not follow the terms and conditions which have been set by the TRAI, then it can revoke the license also. But we have to keep in mind that this step is taken as the last step. Steps to be taken to promote healthy competition, efficiency in service to enable the growth of the industry. The main aim behind this function of TRAI is to empower the authority to supervise the industry for economic growth and development. Students, main aim of TRAI is to present the industry in the terms of economic growth and development, and to keep this function growing, the TRAI supervise the regularly the functioning and performance of all the service providers. Types of equipment used and their inspection. The aim of this function is to ensure better services by the service providers. Students, technology is changing every day. So, TRAI keeps in mind that there should be latest equipment also, and for this it regularly inspect the institutions. Technology advancements in providing the services. The technological aspect of service enhance the quality of service, encouraging research and innovation in the industry and development of technology. Steps are taken for the development of technology and matters related to telecom industry in general. Students, you must be aware that we are heading from 2G to 5G, and this is a big technological advancement, and TRAI has to keep its eyes on such technological advancements and take necessary actions regarding to them. Effective management of the available spectrum. Spectrum refers to the radio frequencies allocated to the mobile industry. Students, TRAI has to distribute the spectrum. And what is spectrum? Spectrum is radio frequency band which are allotted to different service provider to be used for the consumers. So, TRAI has to inspect this matter also. B. Regulatory functions of TRAI. TRAI has to perform following regulatory functions: to ensure compliance of the terms and conditions mentioned in the license by issuing directions or by recommendation of termination of license, to fix the terms and condition of interconnectivity of service providers, to ensure technical harmony and effectiveness between service providers, to direct course of action among organizations for sharing their income, to set out standards of quality of service and conduct periodical surveys to protect the public interest. Students, more than one service providers work in the same region to provide their services. So, there is possibility that any service provider indulges in the illegal practices to gain the leadership in the field. So, TRAI has to take special protection to see that all these activities are not there. For this, it conducts regular surveys, it supervises all the activities, and it tries to establish harmony between various service providers. To maintain a register containing all the interconnection agreements, to prescribe the time period for providing local and long distance circuits of telecom, to ensure compliance of universal service obligation. Universal service obligation refers to making the economic and social opportunities of the telecom sector available to public at large. Students, TRAI also takes special care that consumers' interests are protected and they are given special opportunities in getting the services. So, all these efforts are made through various steps by the TRAI. C. Fixing tariffs for telecom services. To levy fees and other charges at such rates and in respect of such services as may be determined by regulations. Deciding the charges and levy the fees from the consumers and also from the service providers. D. Other functions. According to Act, the TRAI has to perform the administrative and financial functions prescribed by the central government for the effective implementation of the Act. According to the TRAI Act, the recommendations of the TRAI shall not have any binding upon the central government. In case the central government feels that the recommendations given by the TRAI require modification, then such recommendations are sent back to the authority for reconsideration. Student, while discussing all these functions, we have to keep in mind that these recommendations, whether in the field of regulatory practices or other recommendations, they are not in the form of binding on the central government, because government has kept superior authority with itself and it can redirect the authority to change its recommendations and give those recommendations according to the will of the government. Powers of TRAI. To carry out its functions effectively, the TRAI has been provided the following powers. Order for furnishing information. It can direct any service provider to provide in writing the information relating to its affairs as the authority may require. Students, TRAI at any moment can require all the informations regarding any service provider in written. Appointments for inquiry. The TRAI can appoint one or more persons to make an inquiry in relation to the matters of any service provider. If it feels that there is requirement of a special appointment for the inquiry, TRAI can do that. Order for inspection. It is empowered to inspect the books of accounts or other documents of any service provider. Yes, the TRAI can inspect the financial records of any service provider and issue directions to service providers. The TRAI holds the power to issue such directions to service providers which may be considered necessary for proper functioning by service providers. Yes, the TRAI can issue any type of directions to the service provider to carry out the smooth functioning of telecom services. Telecom Regulatory Authority of India role. TRAI has rendered significant contribution in the growth of telecom services, which has resulted in increase in consumer base and in the form of vast network of the telecom services by the service providers across the length and breadth of the country. All these measures have made it possible for the consumer to have choices of services. The tariff of telecom services have also come to affordable range and better quality of services have also become available to consumers. Student, when we come to discuss the role of TRAI, it is necessary to say that today our country is one of the countries which offer the telecom data at cheapest rates, and to do that we cannot underestimate the role and contribution of TRAI. Due to contribution of TRAI, it has been possible that now the consumer have choice to select from a lot of number of service providers and consumer can get the best services at low prices. The exponential growth in subscriber numbers and its reach establishes the effective functioning of the organization. These achievements are result of supportive regulatory environment created by Telecom Regulatory Authority of India through issue of various regulations, directions and orders. TRAI has been successful in its mission of creating and nurturing conditions for growth of telecom services in the country in such a manner which will enable India to play a leading role in emerging global information scenario. Students, need not to say that if India is in the leading conditions in communication sector, it is the result of supportive regulation and regulations and directions issued by the TRAI. It has been successful in maintaining a harmony between various service providers. It has been successful in maintaining the fair competition among the service providers, and due to all these efforts we can see that a telecom sector is growing at fast pace in India. To protect the interest of consumers as well as service providers, the TRAI has taken various measures. For example, TRAI issues quality of service regulations time to time and calls for quarterly performance monitoring reports from service providers to monitor quality of service provided by them against the benchmark laid down by TRAI. TRAI undertakes objective assessment of quality of service in various segments through independent agencies. These agencies conduct customer satisfaction survey quarterly. Students, TRAI has taken so many steps in the field of telecom services. For example, we see that it requires quarterly performance reports from the service providers. For this, it appoints independent agency also to conduct the survey whether the consumers are satisfied with the services provided to them with the service provider or not. To strengthen the quality of standards, TRAI issued the Standards of Quality of Service of Basic Telephone Service and Cellular Mobile Telephone Service, Second Amendment Regulations 2012, for financial disincentive on those service providers who fail to meet the prescribed quality of service benchmark. The service providers have to submit an audit report certified by empaneled auditor along with the report of action taken to remove deficiencies. Student, to strengthen the quality of standards, TRAI has set the benchmark and all the service providers have to keep their level of services provided up to that benchmark. For this, they have to submit an audit report certified by empaneled auditors, and who fail to compliance the benchmarks laid down by the TRAI discourage them by imposing penalty on them. TRAI has established complaint centers with toll-free consumer care number and two-tier complaint redressal mechanism. It has published Citizens Charter and set up a web-based complaint monitoring system. TRAI has issued the Telecommunication Consumer Education and Protection Fund Regulation 2007 to enable service providers to transfer unrefunded money of customers to this fund, which can be utilized to undertake programs to educate consumer and to conduct studies in the field of telecommunication. Students, beside that, TRAI has set up a consumer care number center also, where the complaints of the consumer are met, and also it has set up a mechanism through which the unrefunded money of the customers is deposited and that is utilized for the education of consumers in the telecom services field. TRAI controversies. It is true that TRAI has contributed significantly in development of telecom sector in India. It functions according to clearly defined rules and powers prescribed under the Act, but even then its working is not free from controversies. TRAI is accused of molding its rules to favor a specific service provider, which made it market leader of telecom industry in a very short time period. TRAI is accused of bending its definition of significant market power to give relaxation to that market leader. Students, no doubt TRAI has made great contribution in the field of telecom services, but it is not free from controversies. For example, it is accused of molding its rules in such a manner that benefited a particular service provider, and it was opposed by all the other service providers, and you know that these molding of rules make that service provider a leading service provider in the industry. It is also alleged that TRAI's regulations on predatory pricing favor only one company. Students, sometimes the service provider keep their rates so low that becomes the predatory in the manner of other service providers. To curb these practices, TRAI has taken steps which are accused of favoring only one service provider. TRAI released recommendations on privacy, security and ownership of data in the telecom sector, which are applicable on apps, browser, operating system, etc. These recommendations were alleged to be insufficient in this regard. Student, TRAI released some recommendations regarding the ownership of data and privacy of data, but people argued that these regulations which were and recommendations which were suggested by TRAI were not sufficient and they need to be rethinked. Conclusion. Thus, TRAI is playing significant role in regulating all the activities in the field of telecommunication in India, which is currently second largest telecommunication market, and it is one of the largest data consumers globally. Though there are some controversies associated with TRAI, its achievement and role in maintaining hassle-free services with proper redressal of consumer grievances and taking new initiative in the telecommunication sector cannot be underestimated. The induction of some reforms in the structure and working of TRAI can make it more efficient regulator in telecommunication sector. Student, as conclusion, we can say that TRAI is working in a country which is second largest telecommunication market, and there are lots of consumer also. TRAI has to satisfy them all, and it has to maintain a harmonious environment among service providers, consumers, and with government. And with looking at the complexity of the field, TRAI is performing well. No doubt there are some controversies regarding its functioning, but when we can induct some proper reforms in the working of this institution, we can say that this can become more and more useful for the telecom sector regulation in India.